So if you've been following the course so far, what you will notice is, of course, we have been taking those same techniques and using them to create our own piece. I hope you've noticed that if you're keeping up so far. I hope you've noticed that because that's kind of the whole point of the series. But yeah, we essentially covered most of the techniques that were used in that piece, basically all of them. And the score that I was looking at was actually the film version of the score. So what that means is the phrase structure is not entirely what you would see in a concert piece. Normally in a concert piece, they express the idea as fully as possible. And normally that means they extend the phrase, they play the entire phrase, and they move on to the next phrase. Whereas in a film score, they might cut it short. And so my score is based more on the film version, so it's not gonna sound like the typical one that you hear on YouTube. It's the film version. So why is that important? It's important because we're gonna be looking at phrase structure, and this is the phrase structure of a film piece, not of a regular concert piece. So just keep that in mind. It's just something to keep in mind. It doesn't mean that it's bad or anything. It's still useful because the song still sounds pretty good if you listen to it. If you listen to the film score, it still sounds all right. It's just taking note that it's a film score, right? So it's not going to have the same pacing as your normal piece, and you shouldn't write pieces. You shouldn't let this phrase structure determine how you write concert pieces. There are some techniques that you can use, don't get me wrong. Like there's the A theme, the B theme, which we will cover today. But don't let this determine how you structure a concert piece, because it's not. It's a film score style. So anyways, we went through all these techniques, and so we don't need to cover them exactly. I mean, we can summarize as we go through this, but the main thing we're going to be looking at is the phrase structure. Okay, so we'll just hop straight into it. What we have here, first 8 bars, that's an intro, right? So this is just to capture the attention of the listener, and you can see we just have a lot of different things going on. I mainly use motifs, so there's a lot of motifs in the bass, a lot of motifs here in this melody. This is more of the melody line here, which we covered in the previous videos, and just using a lot of the same rhythms, right, to keep the familiarity, but also at the same time building interest using color tones. And so we use that to capture the interest in the intro, right? And that's why it's important to have an intro. You want to build that interest. So you can see here the intro is 8 bars, and so I have this document here. If you want to have access to it, let me know. I can always put it in the description, maybe in the comments or something. And so yeah, you can see here intro is 8 bars that builds in to the next theme, which is the A theme. And as you can see here, it very simply transitions into this next theme. And another important thing to note is it modulates. So we started off in B flat, we modulate into the key of what? D? We modulated up a major third. That's just another thing to take note of. That's how he was able to achieve that sound. That's exactly what he did in the score. He literally, I just took the exact same like concept of modulation, but then I made the piece my own piece by adding in my own rhythms, my own melodies and stuff to make it my own. But we took the same technique, the harmonic technique of modulating up a third, specifically a major third, to achieve like a similar sound, right? And so we were just kind of doing that with a lot of other techniques throughout this piece, which you can go see the other videos if you want to get a more in-depth analysis. But we essentially did the same thing with everything else. We have these color tones up here, we have triads, rhythmic triads, specifically to lead into the harmonic. So you have triads that emphasize the harmony, but you have triads that lead into those triads. They're not necessarily, they're more like color tones, right? They lead into this triad, which lands on the harmony right here, right? It's emphasizing the tonal center. Anyways, we covered that. You can look at that in the previous episodes if you want to see it. So we land into this A theme. We already know what the A theme is if you've seen the other videos. We transition. We have a transition period, and I noticed that he likes to use chromatic planing a lot in these transitions. He also likes to use scales. So specifically in this piece, that's kind of what he used. And then we transition here into the A theme again, but this time it's up another third. This time it's up a minor third. So we're a fifth above where we started. So that's another thing to take note of. We're a fifth above where we started. I had the A theme up here, the transition, then the A prime theme, which just means that it's different in some way. And this time it's up a minor third. third from where we were, and then it's up a fifth from where we originally started. So just take mental notes of that. That's kind of how you can achieve a similar sound. If you want it to be as similar as possible to this piece, to the Flag Parade piece, you're going to want to do it in that way. You want to do it in that style. You can also take the key signatures. So again, we started off in B flat, then we transitioned into D minor, and then we transitioned into F minor, which is where we're currently at right here. So we transition to F, then we transition, so we have the same transition here with the chromatic planing, and then we go into this new melody, which is the B melody. This, let's see, this is in the same key, so we're not modulating here. Now there is some modulation, you know, well, you could call it harmonic cycling in the melody, but that doesn't really have anything to do with the phrase structure. That's just kind of a way to make the melody stand out. But this is all in the same key. Like this whole section that I'm highlighting right here is all in the same key. So you have a big portion of the piece where it's like the same key, F minor, right? That's because we're taking two phrases and we're just staying in the same key. That's what he decided to do there to achieve that sound. Now, you might be wondering, well, why did he do it like that? Why didn't he modulate? It's most likely because he was looking at the scenes that he was creating, and he wanted it to have a specific effect, right? The scene that he was scoring maybe didn't require modulation because there wasn't much going on. Generally, when you want to spark interest, that's when you modulate, and so he didn't feel it was necessary to do that. So for our purposes, just to achieve that sound, again, we can just look at what he did. He chose to not modulate, so we can choose to do the same thing just to keep things simple. We then have this, is this in the same key or not? This is in the same key. Okay, so even this part stays in the same key. This part right here that I'm highlighting stays in the key of F, and this is what I wrote down, and you can see it here. I wrote it down as the C theme slash fanfare, and there's no transition between the B theme and the C theme. He just kind of goes straight into it. We have another little transition here, and I put that down, and then we go back to where we started. The A theme, we're back in the key of D minor for the A theme, and it's basically the same thing. We transition, we go to the A prime theme. If you want to see it visually, here you go. So you have the A theme, and for this I copy and pasted it. If you want to give it a little bit more variation, a little bit more interest, you obviously want to change some of these notes and make the rhythm a little bit different, right? That's something that he also does. He almost never writes the same thing twice. He always tries to change something about it. So that is something you can do just to give it a little more interest. This sounds pretty good on its own, right? It sounds pretty good. But it's just something you can do to make it better, right? We can always improve, and if I was to go back and do this again, that's something I can improve, right? We can always improve. So just something to keep in mind there. You can always, you know, add things the next time around to spark interest. We have a transition here again, and we're back into the A theme again, just in a modulated up a third to F minor. Again, this is just the same thing we heard earlier. Remember, we had the A theme transition, the other A theme up a minor third. We're just doing that again. It's in the same keys, right? So the only difference this time around, we have the transition. This time we have half of the B theme, and I explained in another video, I just did that because he did that in the film score. I was going purely based off of the film score for inspiration, but if you're looking at the concert version, he most likely continues this theme, and so that's why it's important to keep in mind that this is based off of the film version, not based off of the concert version. Just something to be aware of, so you don't think that, you know, in a concert piece you just interrupt phrase. You don't have to do that unless that's your intention to spark some kind of emotion, but if it's not, just try to avoid it. So then we go into the C theme, which is like what we saw earlier, the fanfare type melody. We have this modulation in the G minor, and we explained in previous videos how he was able to do that. So we're in the key of G minor. We have, I call it the A double prime because it's in a new key that we've never seen before in this piece. And so after that, we have another transition that's about 4 bars, 4-bar transition, and then we have the ending, and really it's just the A theme modulating. How long does it? Yeah, and so we have the ending, which is really just the A theme modulating through different keys. And if you want to learn how to do that, you can go look at the previous videos, and then we just lead into this ending here, right? And again, we cover how I was able to do that in the previous episodes. And so if you're at all confused about what I just covered here, again, we have videos that go through this entire piece, and we kind of just break down the techniques that I used. And yeah, I hope that you're able to learn from this. The best thing to do with this series, I would say, is obviously listen to the Flag Parade score, just kind of listen to it, understand, just to understand what it sounds like. And so you can use these videos as tools to learn how to use those techniques that were actually used in the score to achieve that sound. So you can kind of use both. You can listen to the score and then you can watch this series to kind of help you create a piece that sounds similar to it. So that was basically a summary of the techniques that we used to create Flag Parade, and also an analysis of the phrase structure that was used to achieve that sound. And so if you want to create your own piece, this is essentially the phrase structure you would follow if you're trying to achieve that style of sound. You can of course change it up a bit if you want to, but this is like the main thing that he did to achieve that sound, and I hope that this was helpful. And we're gonna get into another piece soon, and it's gonna be more action related. We're gonna cover techniques that were used there, and yeah, hopefully this series was helpful, and see you in the next video.